You know what, end credits song? You're right. You do torture me. Is that Imagine Dragons speaking or the WB itself? I imagine, Tish, that after 2 reviews worth of me patiently explaining these DC Universe movies to the apathetic and or actively hostile, you'd expect me to do the same for Suicide Squad, the also-ran of 2016. Well, too bad. And it is too bad, really. I loved the Suicide Squad. As a kid, I loved them just as a concept. And as an adult, I loved their spiritual successor, Secret Six, even more. But in spite, or because of this love, I recognize that my enjoyment is pretty much inseparable from my enjoyment of the wider DC universe. I also recognize, with the clarity of hindsight, that it was too damn early for the Squad to make any sense in the context of this little cinematic universe, without the movie itself going out of its way to explain everything to the apathetic and or actively hostile. After all, this is only the 3rd DCCU movie, and it got hobbled out of the gate by its long stint in development hell. The first rumors of it reached my ears all the way back in 2009, and the gods only know what kind of vestigial plan this was supposed to be part of back then. Hell, at the time, the WB was still trying to get Chris Nolan to tie his Batman into a wider world, which he repeatedly refused to do, either because he saw the future, or, more likely, because one of his friends had just taken the pain pills and wine express out of this mortal coil. That'll curb your enthusiasm for anything real fucking quick, let me tell you. For whatever reason, it took 7 years for Suicide Squad to get made. The result vexes me, and the vexing starts almost right off. It lulls me into a false sense of security before pulling out its knives. Like a certain character with a certain mercurial personality. It is nice to see a DC company logo that doesn't suck, though. Rather than a comic book page turning, like it was supposed to, the old one always made me think of those little pull-tab stickers they used to put on CDs that would never, ever pull off in one go, no matter how carefully you tried. So you always wound up having to go get a knife anyway. I remember thinking, during these opening 3 minutes, maybe things are finally looking up. And then thinking, oh, hell. The reason being, within those first 3 minutes, we cycle through 3 character introductions and 3 incredibly well-known pop songs. It's like having someone with terminal ADD fiddle with your car radio. Takes me back to the bad old days, when every wannabe summer blockbuster would release a soundtrack with the subtitle Music from and Inspired by the Motion Picture. Sometimes they'd even say, the hit motion picture, or the motion picture event, if they really felt like tempting fate. It's not that the song choices are wrong. It's that the first 3 minutes of your film are super duper critical to establishing the overall tone. The key word there being overall. What is this movie about? House of the Rising Sun is a great anthem for Belle Reve Prison, a black site that debuted in comics decades before the rest of us even knew what the word black site meant. We used to just call them illegal torture prisons, or death camps. But whenever the USA does something, we always got to invent a cutesy new nickname for it. Because branding is our one true god. And this movie's not about Belle Reve now, is it? Grace's You Don't Own Me is a nice enough anthem for Harley Quinn, especially since Guardians of the Galaxy already used Cherry Bomb, so there goes my first choice. And anyway, is this the Harley movie? You'd certainly be forgiven for thinking so. But what's that title card again? Oh right, Suicide Squad. A covert team of supervillains, threatened into doing the US government's dirty work by the shadiest of its shady operators, and the little remote control bombs she puts in their necks. So by all rights, the one true kickoff point of any Suicide Squad movie must be with Amanda Waller. This movie could have, and by all rights should have, opened with her pitching her crazy idea to the brass, backed by the Rolling Stones' Sympathy for the Devil, the most appropriate Suicide Squad theme song in this or any other universe. It would have instantly improved the flow of the whole experience, but instead, redundancy is our watchword and countersign. So after meeting 2 characters, the one who's popular with comic book readers, and the one who's played by Will Smith, we spend 15 minutes on Waller's pitch, reintroducing both Deadshot Smith and Harley, before getting to all the other squad members who will prove to be important. Side note, I didn't know anybody who didn't take one look at Slipknot here and figure, oh yeah, he's the guy who's gonna get his head blown off just to prove that Waller is super serial about all this. There's always one. It was KG Beast in the 2014 straight-to-DVD animated film the WB used to gauge interest for this project. But they certainly couldn't use him here. His ass just got barbecued at the end of Batman Superman. Yeah, he'll be back. And if they have any sense, he'll be back with one eye and a mechanical hand like the $6 Million Man. There's a strange mix of the 1980s and the modern teams in this roster. And that's not a criticism, just an observation. Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, and Amanda Waller's number one guy, Rick Flag, are all veterans of '87. El Diablo and Harley didn't get on board until the company-wide reboot of 2011. Enchantress, Katana, and Killer Croc, meanwhile, only squatted up after the company-wide reboot of 2016 in a deliberate attempt to get more people like me on board by throwing more peripheral Bat characters into the mix. Katana's my favorite, of course, despite getting a shorter fucking shift than anyone, besides... Oh God, the guy who got his head blown off is right on the tip of my brain. She immediately endeared herself to me by asking Flag if she should kill the rest of the team as soon as she saw him. And I got to spend the rest of the movie laughing my best Aku laugh. Ha ha ha! Foolish samurai hooking up with Rick Flag and the Wall. You should go to Gotham and hook up with that nice Bat fellow. He at least has some integrity. Croc gets runner-up status, filling out the Beastman slot previously reserved for King Shark. Why they didn't put Sharky in here, I'll never know. He's cool, because he's a shark. But no disrespect to Croc. He is obviously a crocodile, and when Harley calls him ugly on the outside, he gets one of the film's best retorts. Not me, shorty. I'm beautiful. For all of Waller's talk about how evolution took a step back with this one. Yeah, because that's totally how that works. Croc also, eventually, gets a hoodie that looks sort of like a wrestler's. And yeah, I'm reaching, but you gotta understand, Croc's backstory as a failed semi-pro heel turned Gotham City muscle keeps receding further into the background as he becomes more and more lizard-like. Seeing even one element still hanging around after all this time is actually nice. Wish there were more of it in Waller's dialogue. I wish her pitch were anything other than a series of meaningless platitudes. But you know, Swamp Thing did volunteer to take Croc off humanity's hands all the way back in 1995. Though, thinking about it now, God, that was 2 reboots ago. Where were we? Oh yeah, Redundancy. All the problems of team-up movies are in full effect here, especially the first and greatest problem. Too many characters, not enough time. Shit, even Fant Fourstick suffered from this, and there's only 4 of them. Worse, here, all the characters are C and D-list villains, virtually unknown to a less literate audience. Except for Harley, but we'll get to her, don't worry. And some section of the WB brass was obviously terrified by these characters' lack of cultural clout. So after Waller's 15-minute dinner pitch meeting, we cut to another pitch meeting. Oh, but this one's at the Pentagon with the Joint Chiefs and or National Security Council or whatever. So it's all official and shit. I can see why they kept it. Having Enchantress teleport herself to Iran and then pop back with a dossier full of nuclear secrets is a much better pitch than some dry recitation of everyone's origin stories. For example, Enchantress here is an archaeologist possessed by the spirit of a Neolithic god monster, kept under control by the fact Waller has her mummified heart in a suitcase, and Rick Flag staying very, very close to her human host. Too close for anyone's comfort, in fact. Except Waller. Which leads me to another one of the best exchanges. When Flag says, "They warned me about you. My dumb ass didn't believe the stories. The wall responds that nobody does, and I respond with a hearty hell yeah. That's the Amanda Waller I know. She'll fuck you over just to stay in practice and make you think it was your idea all along. Massive upgrade from the Amanda Waller who disappeared halfway through Green Lantern. I'm not saying they shouldn't have kept this scene in the Pentagon's bowels. It's a good one. What I'm saying is they shouldn't have kept it and the dry recitation that precedes it. They should have picked one. Same goes for all the other characters. Deadshot, the perennial top-shelf hitman of DC Comics, gets a long flashback at the start, showing what a badass marksman he is. But oh, he still loves his baby daughter, who's already wise beyond her years, and oh, hi, Batman. Then, 15 minutes later, he gets another scene, showcasing what a badass marksman he is. But oh, he still loves his baby daughter, and he just wants the best for her. She should go to all the best schools, because she's wise beyond her years, and blah-de-blah-de-blah. Deadshot calls it his cheerleader tryouts, and he's right. But he already tried out for us, the audience, 15 minutes ago. So, can we move along here? Huh? No? No, we can't. It becomes a question of what's more important from a movie-making standpoint. And why is this movie such a fucking mess? Hell, we don't even get to the important part of Diablo's backstory until we're an hour and a half in. That is, 30 minutes from the end. Same with Katana. Thing is, we comic book nerds have been reading this stuff for years, but there aren't enough of us to make the kind of money the WB wants to make. That is, once again, all of it. And there haven't been enough of us to do that since the 1970s, when the comic book distribution system finally started breaking down. The people in charge know this, and they have no faith in the ability of a general audience to comprehend anything. Hence the built-in redundancy, which leaves the movie half over before the plot even really starts. You want to talk about filmmaking 101? Well, here goes. What we in the biz call the inciting incident, i.e. that thing that makes the rest of the story happen because this thing happens, in Man of Steel, occurs in the very first scene with Superman's birth. The inciting incident of Batman-Superman, that is, Batman witnessing the end of Man of Steel from a on-the-ground perspective and being horrified by it, occurs in that movie's second scene. The inciting incident of Suicide Squad, on the other hand, takes 35 minutes to happen. And this is what we in the biz call doing it wrong. But being an immortal, flying, spellcasting, making shit disappear witch, who was lording it over human beings when we were still trying to figure out that whole crop irrigation thing, Enchantress naturally balks at having her heartstrings pulled by a national security bureaucrat. So she escapes, frees her brother, who was only ever called Incubus in text, but whatever, and the two begin tear-assing through Midway City, which is sometimes the DC Universe's version of Chicago, sometimes Detroit, sometimes even Kansas City. But here I vote Chicago, because Suicide Squad comic book writer John Ostrander is a Chi-Town native, and our anti-heroes will spend the middle hour of this film trying to get to the John Ostrander Federal Building and extract a high-value target. HVT-1. That's your MacGuffin. And since that MacGuffin's so boring, even as MacGuffins go, I had plenty of time to construct a whole headcanon for how John Ostrander got his own federal building in this universe. I figured he got it for either cleaning up this universe's version of the Daily Family's political machine, or he got it as a bribe to get the fuck out of their way. Regardless, Enchantress and Incubus turn a chunk of the population into mindless zombie minions that remind me, as does so much else, of an old Japanese horror movie, Attack of the Mushroom People, and start constructing what Enchantress calls a machine that will destroy them all. Said machine consisting of a big blue lightning bolt that comes out of the ground and makes a swirling wormhole of trash in the sky. Hey, just like Avengers 1, and Fant 4-Stick, and Transformers 3. What is it with big blue swirly wormholes in the sky anyway? Even General Zod and his crew, which I should have called the Zod Squad when I had the chance, plan to cryptoform the Earth by trapping it between two ends of big swirly blue light. Well, third time's the charm. So again, everything I said about the World Engine applies here. Personal battles are good because they're personal. And yes, I know that's a tautology, and no, I don't give a fuck. Big abstract battles against swirly lights in the sky are bad because they're needlessly abstract. Especially when your antagonist can literally project illusions straight into your anti-hero's brains. Sweet Kansan Jesus. If you wanted to thematically link the shady manipulative practices of the United States national security crowd to a superpower, I can't think of a better fucking superpower to pick than illusion casting. But because producer logic mandates we must have an action scene every 15 minutes, and because the PG-13 rating mandates that the armies of evil must be made up of identical thugs who bleed any color but red, Enchantress doesn't actually enchant anyone until the movie's almost over. Except for a tiny one she hits Flag with halfway through, so she can escape his watch, free her brother, and finally start the plot. This especially sucks, because showcasing your character's fondest hopes and dreams can be a great way to reveal their essential core, especially to an audience that doesn't know them from childhood. I'm pretty sure that's at least half the point of Citizen Kane. Other half being a gigantic troll of William Randolph Hearst, the Rupert Murdoch of his time. But what the hell do I know? You could always just have your anti-heroes constantly remind us that they're, quote-unquote, the bad guys. Here's a fun party game. Take a drink every time someone self-identifies as the bad guy, the way no one outside a movie ever does ever. We're the bad guys. It's what we do. Yeah, Dr. Quinzel, we know. Presumably, that was the hook that got us to watch this in the first place. Certainly was all over the goddamn trailers. Time for Harley, then. Harley's what happens when you create a new character for your established, omnicidal, misanthropic villain to talk at, /to, and that new character becomes, arguably, more popular than your established villain ever has been. Seeing Harl in live action was a rare and special treat, even before she put on those pleasantly distracting booty shorts, tracking her journey from Batman the Animated Series, into the comics, and finally back to the big screen, is a great way to give yourself a crash course in the genre's entire modern history. That process is aided by the fact that Harley's defining element of tragedy remains her abusive relationship with an amoral mass murderer. It's a great example of the kind of relationship that substitutes quantity of emotion for quality. That is, the kind of relationship that's become an object of obsession for vast swaths of the population. Yes, Joker and Harley take it to ridiculous extremes, but that's just Gotham City, motherfuckers. Recognize. If the aisles of relationship books with names like Too Good to Leave, Too Bad to Stay are any indication, don't laugh. I didn't make that up. People are emotionally starving out there in the real world. And when you've starved for long enough, even Jack in the Box starts to look good. This is why someone can agree with every single point in your 10-minute explanation of how their favorite romance novel series is actually a cult leader training manual, and respond with nothing more than a breezy, yeah, but it's still pretty damn hot. But screw up your face and go, ugh, all you want. The fact remains, these relationships speak to people in a way few others can. Because the rest of the world is usually too busy talking down to the kinds of people who find that these relationships speak to them. I made that same mistake back during the Twilight Saga's heyday, and now here we all are, completely unarmed, in the face of the 50 Shades of Grey trilogy. May the gods help us all, because nobody else will. All of which is to say, this easily could have been Harley's movie. She's by far the most popular character on this team. Margot Rubio is great in the role, doing a lot with not really all that much. And she's the only one who gets an actual on-screen origin story. And nice as it is to see, it highlights how everyone else in the squad has to make do with table scraps of attention. Deadshot sums up my feelings on all this with his line, you know, for about 2 sweet seconds there, I had hope. You and me both, Agent J. This millennium's not working out very well for either of us, is it? Of course, to make this the proper Harley movie, they would have had to leave in all of the short but welcome scenes of Harley fucking with everybody's heads that only exist in the extended cut. In fact, they're the bulk of the extensions. My favorites are when she tries to Psych 101 Katana, and Katana refuses to take that shit. And when she asks Croc if he wants to eat her, and he says he doesn't need her crazy in his system. Also, they would have had to make the Joker the kind of main antagonist all the trailers made him out to be. And I'm not saying that's what they should have done. I'm as sick of Joker hogging the spotlight as anyone. And Enchantress could have been a fine foil for the squad. As it stands, she almost is. But in a field this crowded, she doesn't get nearly enough time to make an impression on people with anything other than her midriff. Besides, Waller's the true antagonist of any story she's in. Oh, Waller is HVT1, by the way. Spoilers. Which makes all of this destruction and death really all her fault. But you probably already guessed that. What the fuck was Waller doing in Midway City anyway? Studying your girlfriend, she says to Flag. And for all the intel she'd gathered, she could have sat in a bunker under DC. But then, of course, we wouldn't have the shocking surprise twist of her being HVT1. Or the scene where Waller shoots a room full of her own underlings just to keep the squad a secret. Or the scene after that, when she intimidates a room full of super criminals with nothing more than a cell phone app. And Croc speaks for both of us when he says, I like her. Hell yes. More than enough to give Viola Davis this movie's MVP award and congratulate her on a wonderful job building the wall. Shame about the rest of this movie, though. There are little bits of awesome scattered throughout. Like when Deadshot's helping his daughter with her geometry homework. And that pink unicorn that is Captain Boomerang's sole character trait, besides the constant drinking. But hold on to your butts, people, because here comes the shocking surprise twist for why this movie is the way it is, that you probably figured out already. As with previous two DC movies, everyone decided to hate this thing the moment they heard about it. Don't say you didn't. You did. But then, like a beam of green light from a planet of blue people, who all loved Bohemian Rhapsody, the squad's first trailer hit the internet, causing quite the sensation, especially in my little movie circles. Most just used it as a new stick to bash Batman Superman with, as in, oh wow, DC's making a movie that actually looks fun? With colors and everything? Wow, what, I'm shocked. Wow! And I'll give it this, it was a slick commercial, made by professionals. There are, in fact, multiple production studios all over the world who do nothing but make 2.5-minute trailers. So Warner Brothers, with their usual infinite wisdom, hired at least 2 of these companies to make at least 2 different cuts of this movie. Then they focus group tested those cuts against whatever director David Ayer and John Gilroy were already working on at the time. After all, a 2-hour, 14-minute movie? What is that? That only wound up being like 2 hours and 4 minutes in the theatrical cut, but still, that's like, what, 54 2-minute trailers? All strung together? Yeah? Yeah, fine. The results of that focus grouping informed Suicide Squad's final cut. So is it any wonder that this film's a Frankenstein monster of competing subjects, dropped threads, high fan service, few, if anyone even noticed, and barely their characterizations? Well, it shouldn't be. This is the logical end result of a movie culture obsessed with teasers and exclusive first looks behind the scenes. So obsessed, in fact, that we've started judging movies years before they come out, just like the corporate sharks who own them. It's a shite state of affairs to be in, Tommy, and all the neon colors in the world won't make any fucking difference.
Oh dear. Are you mad, little brother?
Point is, if anyone, anywhere in the production process had any clear idea of what this movie was going to be, they got overruled. Making this, as far as I can tell, the Fant 4-stick of 2016. Except we haven't heard any stories about anyone showing up to work drunk yet. Find the animated film I mentioned a few hundred words back. It's called Batman: Assault on Arkham, because 3 years ago the WB seemed to think that we wouldn't buy anything if it didn't have Batman's name in it. And, God, they're probably not wrong. I reviewed it back when it came out, but that was a full motion video review, and YouTube censorship robots are never going to allow that to appear on this channel. Last time I tried, instant worldwide block from the WB, copyright strike, 6 months of restricted privileges. So, it's on my website if you want to see it, but the capsule version it's the Suicide Squad movie that this Suicide Squad movie should have been. And you should all go see it.
And you should continue trying to spark a, shall we say, civil war?
How about let's not and say we did?